Anyway, we're going to start with Frank from Elite Roofing. And Frank, come on up.
Good morning. You know, I thought I'd bring in some composites and, some shingles and throw them up against the wall and give you an opportunity to take a look at it, rub them and see what the texture is and see some high impact things and throw some things down on them so you could see how well they worked and how well the insurance company insured those things. But I thought most of you might walk out. So given that, and being at 1 Million Cups a few times before myself, I see our emphasis is kind of on social impact and the things that are done that way, in addition to how we get to those places in our small business that looks like success for us. So I'm going to tell you a little story which really kind of illustrates the heart of Elite Roofing. And this is a true story, and it happened right here in our beautiful city. I've been here for 34 years now, longer than many of you have been alive. I thought I'd throw that in for free. But years ago, there was an old bum that lived down in Acacia Park. He used to sleep underneath a bush. He would be there every day, and there was a businessman that back in those days would walk through Acacia Park to get to his business every morning. And just like you and just probably like me, he would see the old bum sitting in the park, and he would kind of walk all the way around the park to make sure he didn't make any eye contact or get any of cooties or whatever it is that bums give you. So he would just walk all the way around. And over the course of time, he started looking out the corner of his eye at this old bum that was sleeping underneath a bush in the park, and he wondered, what is his story? How did he get in the park? How did he get under the bush? How did these things happen to this guy, and what were the events that led him to such a life? This is a true story. This businessman one day went right outside of his comfort zone, went close to the bush and said, "How are you?" and kept walking. The process of humanizing the bum in the park, it was quite an amazing thing. One day, this businessman walked over to this bum and shook his hand and began a conversation. Where did you come from? How did this end up being part of your life? What did you go through? What are the things that happened to you on your ascension to bumness? How did you end up with a life like this? And this is the craziest thing about this story to me as I think about it, and it's still really, really crazy. But this businessman, after a couple of months of these small interactions, went to the bum and took him by the hand and took him home. In the course of some mentoring, opportunity, and relationship, and over the course of the time, this bum changed. I still know both these guys today. They're still part of our community here in Colorado Springs. And some people would even tell you that that old bum that was laying there underneath a bush in the park has made a contribution to the community. So you want to be socially impactful. Really? This story makes so much difference to my life because exactly 34 years ago, I was that bum sleeping underneath that bush in Acacia Park. So you want to be socially impactful. Really? You really want to make a difference in the way that companies and businesses are looked at in our community. You know, most people aren't telling you to go rescue a bomb. But as social impact becomes something that's just a buzzword for profit, or is your company really interested in being socially impactful? Really? Let me read you one poem before we go to the question and answers. It's called The Cold Within. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in black and bitter cold. Each one possessed a stick of wood, or so the story goes. Their dying fire in need of logs, the first one held theirs back. For on the faces around the fire, she noticed one was black. The next man looking across the way saw one not of his church and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The third one sat in tattered clothes, he gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? The rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight. For all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. And the last man of this forlorn group did not accept for gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. The logs held tight in death's stiff hand was proof of human sin. They didn't die from the cold without. They had died from the cold within. Thank you.
Q&A. We can go a little bit longer because I don't think, one last chance for Greetly. Are you here? Did you come? All right, well then, thank you so much, Frank, and please ask your questions away.
Please.
Frank, tell us about Elite Roofing and how this has all come together and your social impact. What you're doing now.
What a great question, great lead in. You know, to me, leadership is influence. It really is. When we part down to its most simplistic thing, if you say you're a leader and nobody's following, as Maxwell says, you're simply taking a walk. Right? So really, so if you're not influencing anyone, and if that's the part of leadership, and to answer your question, Elite Roofing, I can go into the myriad of things that we're involved in. Personally, I mentor guys from the rescue mission that are in transition from drugs and homelessness back into being a viable part of the community. I do that. We build roofs for Habitat for Humanity and those kind of things, etc., for free, and all of our guys engage, which is another point for me. It's funny how many people want to be engaged in social impact from a distance. That's absolutely amazing to me. You know, I'll throw a check at you. Good luck. And I'll advertise you on my website. But social impact is much more about the heart than it is the head. There's a lot of people that I hear in business are sounding very good intellectually. They have these business terms and things down, but nothing's happening in the transformation of our community or their business. So only people that are being impressed are the ones that are winning cups. Right? Right, so Elite, we are dedicated. How did my influence and leadership make a difference in Elite Roofing? Back to your original question. My son owns Elite Roofing. His name is Randy, he's 35 years old. Our net revenue this year is $15 million. He's been in business for 11 years. He just released his first construction book. I'm very, very proud of him. My daughter Danielle is Vice President of Operations and Finance for Comcast. one of our hosts and sponsors here. My youngest daughter, Brianna, is operations manager for Elite Roofing and one of the top 5 subject matter experts in Colorado in business. So I think I made some influence somewhere, and my kids are very, very interested in making real social impact. So if influence kind of starts at home, doesn't it? Now, I don't take all the credit for all the great things they've done. I won't take all the blame for all the knucklehead things they do. But we still make influence. Go ahead.
You mentioned Habitat. How is your company involved, and what kind of roofs do you put on now?
Cheap ones. No, I'm just joking. In Denver last year, we put a full crew on 2 Habitat homes, and we bought the material and we paid for the labor, well, our crews. From the entire project was ours. We hope to do that in Colorado Springs this year. So did that answer your question?
Mostly, my understanding was Habitat used volunteers, not really companies.
We are
Are you a
volunteers.
volunteer company?
Volunteered company, absolutely.
So do you then bring the normal volunteers onto the crews, or you do the whole thing yourself, or how? I'm kind of wondering how a company interacts with a normally individual volunteer effort.
Well, we do. We coordinate, and we have weeks of planning of what our portion of that work is going to do with the regular volunteers at Habitat, and we just simply work together. Yeah, and we pull it together that way. So we have a project manager, and he kind of guides the other volunteers. Our volunteers do roofing. So the other volunteers typically aren't involved because obviously there's too many liabilities and other things there. But we just put on the roof, so I'm not quite sure if I'm answering your question or what.
But
No.
it sounds like you volunteer as an entity
Yeah,
instead of as an individual.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, but our individuals have to volunteer to become our entity. So, you know, no one can make people that work for us come and work on these roofs. So they have a heart to do that. They still combine. We're not representing Elite Roofing per se. It's individuals coming together to do a roof, and that's what their trades are. They just happen to work for Elite Roofing. So we don't use that as on our marketing material or anything like that, so that Elite gets some kind of credit for it. Oh, hopefully that answers. Yes, go ahead.
Can you share one of your biggest obstacles or biggest learning opportunities that you had as, you know, being in the business and how you were able to overcome it?
Sure. Well, we went bankrupt our 3rd year. That was kind of an obstacle. It really was. Overcoming, to me, I mean, it's dogged determination. I really don't know of any successful business that doesn't just persevere, doesn't keep their nose to the ground. So believe in principles that they have for their business. We have principles that are non-negotiable. Faith, family, honesty, integrity. We're not, obviously all our employees aren't faith-based people, but they're faithful to our company, faithful to one another. Faith rolls over in a different way. I am a pastor, so I unashamedly admit that faith is very important to me and my family personally, but that's obviously not something that can roll over to other people's lives or be enforced in other people's lives. So my son Randy was devastated at the 3-year mark. And one guy stole some money from us. We went through. I'm sure none of these challenges have ever happened to only Elite Roofing. And all these things that went on that were very, very negative. But we had a strong family support system. Anybody other than me know that we can't do this crap alone, and that it's kind of hard. It really is hard. It's hard to build a business. It really is. So we knew that the gaps in roofing, because I know all of you look at roofing in such a industry field with integrity and so we knew all the gaps and we knew all the challenges that were involved in roofing, and we were determined as a group, as a company, that we had principles that were going to be bedrock and non-negotiable. So anyone that worked for us, we would channel or align those back with those principles. If not, then they wouldn't work for us. And that was hard initially because most roofers, quite frankly, don't hold those principles to be true. So overcoming, we have some long-term employee. This year, an average roofer, if he produces, a project manager, if he produces $300,000 to $400,000 in a year, he's been very successful. We had 7 project managers in 2017 that produced over $1 million of revenue. Yes. And we also have the highest composite ratings across all platforms in the roofing industry in this state. So we are true to who we say we are. Stay true, have principles, don't deviate. Yes?
What is your role in this family owns and runs?
I'm the patriarch. Okay, I'm just the I'm the old guy that's depending on this company for my retirement. But in addition to that, I have tremendous amount of influence, and my official title is Director of Business Development. So what I do is go and make connections. We are establishing, not establishing, but expanding our footprint in Southern Colorado now. That's my responsibility. Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious, you said you were hoping to help Habitat for Humanity here in the Pikes Peak area. Are you guys already in the process of talking to them, or what does that process look like to be able to contribute directly to the social impact?
Well, we had a talk, leadership changed.
Yes.
And we had a conversation with Habitat for Humanity, and we had given the proper paperwork to be involved. So now we're kind of having to pivot a little bit with the new leadership and make sure that we're on the same page and they understand what our contribution can and will be. I am very, very optimistic that we'll be involved in a project this year.
Would having another person on the board over there help?
Yep.
Okay.
It would. You want to be on?
So the person who ordered that furniture sits on the board.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, connect us. That's what these things are about, right? Indeed, indeed. Anything else? Yes, sir, again.
So what is the construction book? You said just published their construction book?
Yeah, yeah, I'll show it to you afterwards. I'm a little bit proud. Yeah, it's called, what is it entitled? Yeah, I read the No, holding his stinking book in my hand. That'd be over the top proud, wouldn't it? But, grow it, build it, something like that. Yeah, but I have a copy on my Kindle, and I can show you. Oh, unabashed promo here. You can buy his book on Kindle right now at the pre-release point of only for 99 cents. So I'll show it to you at the end. You had a question, please.
Yeah, what do you say is the biggest contributor to your success and growth?
The biggest contributor is good people. And I know that sounds cliche-ish, but yeah, good team, retention, keeping, in our business, the rollover is insane. In the construction business and the roofing business in particular, rollover is insanity. And we had an 87% retention rate over the last 3 years of people. Keeping people out in front of your business that represent your business, and sustaining that, I think is key. I think that's key in any business, but particularly with businesses with horrible reputations. You know, because people's expectations are turnover. Who am I going to see? I'm going to talk to this guy on the phone and see someone else at my door. You know, and if you're talking about people's homes, they don't want that. They want to be able to talk to the same person throughout the process. Yes?
Yes, so as a follow-on, so what are 3 or 5 things you're doing to retain
Number one, they make tremendous money. You know, and we give them opportunities for tremendous money. Normally, a project manager for my company doesn't have to go and solicit for work for himself. We have systems and processes in place that we keep everyone busy. You just have to represent well once you get to the homeowner's place. That's number one. It's always, compensation is always going to be a key player. If we think not for you socially minded millennials that think just by doing good stuff, people want to get paid well and compensated well. So that's number one. Number two, we have systems in place. My son's a young guy. He found that he was 24 years old when he started this business. He's 35 now. And he does things that keep us at the forefront of the industry. The new processes, the CMR, the systems and things. So that's number two. Number three, we celebrate well. We get together, man, and we celebrate well. We just had a Christmas party. We had 130 people there with families, and so we gave every kid a present. We find ways to celebrate well. You know, did you say 4 or 5? Can I leave it at 3? Yeah, we have other ones, but I get too excited and I'm old and I get worn out trying to answer all those. So thanks for asking that. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the exciting things that might be on the horizon for 2018 as we look at the year ahead?
Indeed. Right now we're at 80% residential, 20% commercial. As we look at a customer base, we want to pivot into 50-50 because we know our 10-year goal is to be a $100 billion roofing company. And I know that sounds astronomical and out there, but who expected us to be where we are now? So why not have big targets and big goals? And we know to roll into that, we're going to have to really start concentrating more on commercial. We just hired a new commercial leader in our industry who's visionary, whose values align with ours. So we're beginning to attack that market and see if we can make some serious inroads. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a social media account or a website or anything like that that we can share with people after speaking with you about
We have the best website in the industry.
Awesome.
Of course we do. Remember, he's 35 years old. Indeed. Elite-roofs.com. Absolutely. Yes?
My understanding is that you have a leadership background before you actually got into
Why would you understand that?
Because I talked to you. Would you tell me how that impacts what you do now?
All right, yeah, indeed. Before I started, I came on. My son had tried to get me to come on and work for 7 years. I just started, I've only been in the company a year and a half because I was concerned about how the family connection would impact his business. I didn't want to be a negative pull or influence. Before I came into roofing, I did leadership development and interpersonal communications training for corporations for many, many, many years. So I believe that translates well because my son's a visionary, but he doesn't practically, he hires good people to help walk through the steps of what our business has to do to be successful. I believe my leadership, being his dad, there's a natural influence that you have anyway. And say, oh my word, Randy's that successful, you're his dad, so you must be awesome. That's not always true, but hey, perception's reality, right? So my influence is that I get to touch the company at many levels, from the highest level, obviously, down to the laborers that are working for our company. So I think my influence, my leadership background helps tremendously in knowing how those tap points work and how I best serve my son and his company. That may be a high-level answer, but that's the best I can do. All right. Yes?
So, Frank, how did you end up under that bush, and what did it take to get out?
Well, it took the guy, someone believing in me to get out. I got there from alcohol abuse. I'd been in the Air Force for 8 years. I was 26 years old when this event happened in my life. And my plan was to go back to Japan because I had spent my last 3 years there. But how many of you know that alcoholics don't think very clearly? I know none of you have ever had that problem. It's only been me, so take my word for it. Alcoholics do not think very clearly. So my plans were to go back, but I drank all my money away, and I woke up one day on South Nevada in a hotel with no money, no airline ticket, and no passport. Needless to say, the guy that owned the hotel wasn't very sympathetic. So he kicked me out, so I ended up walking up and down Nevada with a suitcase in my hand until I linked in with the homeless community who took me in open arms. It was kind of funny back then because, you know, you could get a joint, but you couldn't get any food. So you walk around smoking a joint, you got the munchies, but you have no money for food. So that you could get a joint anywhere, you know what I mean, in the park, but you couldn't. But the other part was it was a trip. So I just settled in, man, and got to know people in the community. And I say, this isn't too bad. You know, I hadn't had a car payment in 3 months. No one sent me a mortgage payment, and the utilities aren't threatened to be cut off. And so a lot of people in that community, we settle in, and some big event that's happened in your life that's been devastating, that's been psychologically devastating. I met 3 guys in the park that had PhDs. It's not all about how smart we are, you know, it really isn't. And so I settled in, and I got comfortable. So that's how I ended up the bush. And since I had mapped out the bush, because, you know, I had a college degree too, so I was a smart homeless guy. I had mapped out my bush, and that was the one that I ended up hanging out underneath. That's a short story to a very tragic process in my life during that time.
We have time for one last question before our super special question.
Yes?
What can we do for the homeless community in Colorado?
Well, I think the misconception about the homeless community is that, you know, we pass people with signs. Should I give them some money, or shouldn't I give them money? Should I stop or not? Why don't you follow your heart and stop analyzing the process so much? You know, if you feel in your heart that that's a person to stop by, why are you concerned about the outcome? Isn't the point that your heart was moved to do something? You say, well, he may go buy some more alcohol. He might. He might. That's not our part. It really isn't. I mean, the respect and value of another human being has absolutely nothing to do with their circumstances. But it does have a lot to do with investment in time. It has a lot to do with really where you're coming from. If you're doing it just to make yourself feel better, then it's not sustainable. But if you're doing it because you have a real passion for other people, regardless of where they are in life, and you're concerned about how they got there in life, then you might be able to help a homeless person. Okay? Obviously, there's some parameters around there, safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But follow your heart if you want to do something for other people, regardless of their situation. You're here. The Chicago guy's not here, right?
Technically, is there anybody, last chance, guys.
Chicago.
Well, let's ask our last special question, and then we can...
And could I read this one thing after that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, after the last special question. Go ahead.
What can we as a Colorado Springs community do to support Elite Roofing?
Well, you can buy a roof. Pray for hail. On a practical level, you could always, during that time, if those situations come, obviously we're captive to the weather. So no one can do anything about that, or whether it comes or whether it doesn't come. But if you do get that opportunity, let us be one of 3 people that look at your house. Have three contractors look at your house. Don't the first drive-by truck that comes to your home and say, come on down, you're the next roofer. On the roof is right. Have 3 reputable people look at your property and discerningly look and see who can do the very best job for you. I believe we can. So if those opportunities come, but for us, join us in really making some social impact. Don't do it. You know, the outcome, it's just a byproduct that you'll make money for doing the right thing. That's simply a byproduct. But if it's the point for you, why don't you reevaluate why social impact is really important to you? And always makes those evaluations over and over and over again. Because how many of you know that we have heart drift, mission drift? We drift away from the purpose many times, and then we start doing what's convenient. Have some principles that you stand by, you believe in, and that are non-negotiable for your business, and follow through. Right on? Right on. Let me read. Let me read one last thing. I used to use this as a close when I did this, and we went around the business and talked about leadership development and communication. You're right, your wife is beautiful. Good job, buddy. This book is by the late, great Max Dupree, who was the CEO of Herman Miller, the furniture company. He wrote, Esther and I have 11 grandchildren. One of them born weeks premature is now in the 3rd grade. And while she has some special challenges, she is really doing quite well. One day when she was 3 years old, she came to visit me in my office, which is a small condominium. She said, Grandpa, would you like to see me run? And I must tell you, my heart jumped. I thought to myself, this little girl can hardly walk. How is she going to run? But like a good grandparent, I said, yes, I'd like to see you run. She walked over to one side of the room and started to run, right across in front of my desk and directly into the side of the refrigerator. It knocked her on her back. And there she lay, spread eagle on the floor with a big grin on her face. Like any good manager, I immediately went over with a solution. I said, honey, you've got to learn to stop. And she looked up at me with a big smile on her face and she said, but Grandpa, I'm learning to run. If you're in business, are you learning to run? There'll be a lot of refrigerators in the way. And a lot of those that we're gonna run into on your way to however you define success. But every time a good manager comes to you and say, you need to stop, you look them straight in the eye and you tell them, I'm just beginning to run. Thank you.